Hey guys, Coltrane here, and I wanted to make a follow-up video to my video that I put out a while now at this point about how I was questioning if any of the devs actually play Barbarian in Diablo 4. And looking at the Season 2 changes for Barb, either A, you goddamn right that some of them do, or B, they finally just started listening to our feedback. Either way, these changes look great, and I wanted to quickly, or I mean, as quickly as I can anyway, because it's quite a bit, just kind of like go over what's changing and my thoughts about it, and why, me personally, I'm going to main a Barb again in Season 2. So let's get right into it, guys. So, right off the bat, the bonus damage granted while berserking is active is now multiplicative instead of additive. This is huge. We have so many ways to get berserking. We have so many good interactions with berserking. We have even more good interactions with berserking, which are in the patch notes and with item changes and some other stuff, which we will get into. This is great. This is immediately an amazing step in the right direction for us to just do more damage consistently. Skill changes. Enhanced bash. Fortify amount change being based on base life to a max life. So this is one of many fortify changes, which basically they buffed fortify overall, because now where it's based on max life and not base life, you're just getting more value out of your fortify, which is great. We'll just be tankier all around. Like it. Upheaval. Damage increase from 0.7 to 0.77. So just a nice little buff to upheaval. Furious upheaval. Bonus damage per stack increased from 5 to 12. Nice buff. Max number of stacks reduced from 10 to 6. So less stacks, more damage. Overall, a net gain in damage for upheaval. Really good. So, Strategic Rallying Cry, Strategic Iron Skin, and Mighty War Cry, those are all more fortified buffs, which we like to see that. Supreme Wrath of the Berserker. So, at first glance, this might look like a nerf. Max damage bonus is now times 100% bonus damage. Overall, I don't think it's going to be that bad. I think we'll about break even. We might even do better overall just because of the fact that berserking in general is going to be better. And Wrath of the Berserker is just a great way to give yourself berserking and maintain berserking. So overall, I think it'll be like a net. It'll be negligible if anything. I really don't think it matters. A lot of builds don't even run Wrath of the Berserker, so I really don't think it's that big of a deal. We got enhanced rupture buffs. They're buffing rupture a lot. You can tell they really want like a bleed build to be viable. But the added functionality to enhance rupture, the damage is increased by times 10% for each 50 strength you have. It's a lot of free damage just for stacking the stat you were already just stacking the stat you were already stacking anyway, right? Um, yeah, so that's going to be just a nice damage buff to Rupture. Warriors Rupture, they increase the attack speed by 10%. That's great. Fighters Rupture, the healing is improved. So overall, I mean, Rupture's looking pretty good too. Looking like a really good contender for Barb build this season. Passive changes. Endless Fury. Fury gains increased. I really don't think that like people are just going to suddenly start using Endless Fury. I mean, maybe for leveling it might be good, but I really don't think it's going to swing it just because you're giving us more Fury gen. Imposing Presence, which is just a buff to just max life, so we're just getting more max life, which is going to stack great with those fortified changes. Martial Vigor, damage reduction against elites increased from 369 to 4812. Just free more damage reduction against elites. Can't go wrong with that. Thick Skin, the fortified buff, yep, so more fortified changes. Paragon boards. Here we go. So, if you remember my other video, my biggest complaint that I had about barbarians in general was their Paragon boards were trash. And they actually acknowledged it in the dev stream. Like, the title to the card where they went into this was Barbarian boards are very bad. And they were. They were terrible. They were laughably bad. So let's look at what we have now. So Decimator, this was one of the biggest offenders for just being laughably bad, a meme. Like it was so bad. Like you had your two-handed slashing weapon attacks had up to an 8% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. Whoop-de-doo, man. Like the exploit glyph was better than this, just baseline. It just was. Now, each time you make an enemy vulnerable, so no, like, maybe you'll make them vulnerable. No, when you make them vulnerable, your damage is increased by 10% for 5 seconds. I do not believe this stacks, but that's okay. It's just a free 10% damage buff for making something vulnerable. And when you overpower a vulnerable enemy, you get an additional 10% bonus. Now, at first glance, it's like, well, barbs don't really have reliable ways to overpower. We'll get into that. They actually do now. going right into it with Bone Breaker. So with Bone Breaker, now every 12 seconds, you are guaranteed to overpower, which is great. So every 12 seconds, you know you're going to overpower. So stack it with the Decimator buff. Like you make them vulnerable, you overpower them, you get free 20% bonus damage, which is great. Now, unfortunately, you can't do this with like Whirlwind because Whirlwind, as a channeled ability, cannot overpower. It would have been really cool to just guarantee your overpower, snapshot it on the Whirlwind, and just Whirlwind and overpower everything until you let go of the button, you know. But I guess that might be a little too crazy. So the other ones here, Flawless Technique, it's just a buff to the duration, buff to the crit strike chance amount. I don't think that's going to be that huge either way. I mean, it's a buff, so it's a step in the right direction. I don't think it's going to make a big difference, though, unfortunately. Carnage, the attack speed max amount is increased. It'll doubled, basically, which could be good. Again, I don't know if it's going to be enough, but then we go to Warbringer, where the Fortify amount is increased from 12 to 15% max life. So just more Fortify buffs, stacking on top of those Fortify buffs we're already getting. It's going to be really nice. We are going to be pretty tanky because of that. Because of all these Fortify buffs, the buffs to just getting more life. It'll be really nice, I feel like. I mean, this was the only legendary node Barbs took anyway, so we're probably still going to take it, and it's just going to be even better. So Weapon Master, now when you swap weapons, you get 4% of your max fury, so it's not like a flat fury amount, it's a percentage. Could be okay. I mean, I don't know if it's gonna matter. I feel like in like the end game, we don't really struggle with fury anywhere near as much as we do leveling. So I don't know if it's really gonna be that big of a deal. Now the next two I really like. So Hemorrhage. Previously you had to make something bleed for 3 or more seconds and then it would start taking extra damage from you. Now your bleeding damage is just flat increased by 15% multiplicative of the total amount of your damage to vulnerable enemies bonus. So just free more bleed damage. And bleed is going to be really strong in season 2, mostly because of the changes to crit strike damage where they lowered the amounts that your crit strike damage will be able to do, which didn't affect bleeds anyway because bleeds can't crit. So you'll just be doing more bleed damage in general because of this node and other changes as well, and other stats that we may be stacking instead of crit strike damage and instead of vulnerable. So Blood Rage, I like this one too. Added functionality. Your damage dealt is increased by 25% multiplicative of the total amount of your damage while berserking bonus. So earlier, talked about the buff to berserking. So, and also berserking in general is just going to be better. So people will probably be focusing more on it. And I honestly think that damage while berserking as a stat is going to be very viable. Not only because of like a node like this, but just in general because of the way that berserking damage is going to work. So I think it is an actual legit strategy in season 2 of stacking your damage while berserking as a stat. So yeah, moving off the Paragon boards, going into legendary aspects. Not a lot of changes here. They kind of fixed the Hammer of the Ancients aspect so that you don't have to position all funky to try to do extra damage with it, which is good. The Earth Strikers aspect, they just lowered the requirement to get the overpower, guaranteed overpower. So kind of feeding into the, I guess they were just trying to feed into the whole like, oh, well, maybe if we make Barbs overpower more, it could be good. Because they are buffing overpower a decent amount in Season 2. Um, let's see. So going into the unique changes. So the Magnum Opus, they took vulnerable damage to vulnerable enemies affix has been replaced with Max Fury at 150% of normal value. So you will have plus Max Fury on this weapon at a 150% value of what a typical stat would be on it. So just giving you a lot of extra Fury, which feeds right into the unique affix, which they actually buffed as well. They buffed it from 0.1 to 0.3, 2.2 to 0.4. So just good, just a good buff to the weapon in general. Azarath, non-physical damage affix increased by 120%. We don't really do a whole lot of non-physical damage as Barbs. There are some exceptions. I don't know if this is really going to make Azarath see some play. I mean, it might make it see play with the Hellhammer changes here I'm about to go into, where they replaced, or the damage to burning enemies affix got increased, which could stack with this, I suppose. But anyway, the main thing with Hellhammer is they've made it have bonus ranks of upheaval, which is great. That is what this weapon was missing. Because honestly, like, ranks of skills is going to be huge in Season 2. Because of the changes to, like, the vulnerable, changes to the crit strike damage, things like that. So additional ranks of your skills is going to be more valuable than ever. So this next change, I'm super excited about because I ran this I ran this weapon anyway when I played Thorns because of the convenience of pulling stuff to you, making it vulnerable, giving myself berserking. It's in melee with me then now. Thorns will like destroy the stuff when it was just so good to do, and now it's even better. Now it's no longer damage to slowed; it's damage to close. Great, just way easier to take advantage of the stat. And they adjusted the unique power. Now when you pull things with it, it just takes 30 to 50% bonus damage for 3 seconds from you. That's so good. The one thing that's kind of sucks is that like the enemy has to be pulled, I believe, because of the way it's worded. So it shouldn't work on bosses or things that are unstoppable. But overall, just a great change to that item. Like I said, I was using it anyway when I played Thorns, and now I definitely will if I play Thorns. Overkill got ranks to Death Blow. I mean, that's okay. I don't think that's going to make it see play. Maybe. Fields of Crimson. Now, this is actually really interesting. So, bonus ranks of Rupture Affix has been replaced with Rupture cooldown reduction at 200% of normal value. So, they got rid of the cooldown, and now they've given it back at a high value, which I believe this will make it so you can probably just sit there and spam Rupture, which stacking that with the other buffs to Rupture, the buffs to bleeds in general, I think this is going to be actually really, really nice. Because they added a new unique for barbs, I believe, that was like every like 30 to 40 seconds, I believe, your Rupture has a chance to not remove the bleed. So Rupture could be a contender. I do think bleed is going to be very, very strong in season 2. Let's see, Battle Trance. Bonus ranks of Frenzy FX increased by 100%. So now you'll be able to get, I believe it's up to like plus 6 ranks of Frenzy with that. Maybe. And then damage reduction while injured FX placed with bonus max fury. So just more fury. So the thing that I'm kind of curious about with this, with Battle Trance, is there is a vampiric power that buffs your basic attacks. It might actually we might be able to see like some sort of like frenzy build where a lot of our damage just comes from frenzy. That'll be cool to like play around with. All right, so 100,000 steps. So this was a step, no pun intended, in the right direction. So like the affix has been increased by 100%, the dexterity affix. So you get a lot of dex on these. The damage with skills that swap the new weapons affix was increased. Now this is the part I'm kind of disappointed about. So they reduced the internal cooldown of the free ground stomp from 30 to 15. So they cut it in half, but it's still an internal cooldown that's like 15 seconds. I would really like to see them just get rid of the internal cooldown entirely. And that way it would again incentivize people to do like a cool build where you're getting free ground stomps like a bunch of the time and causing earthquakes and stuff. Because I just think that'd be really cool. I don't know why we have to have an internal cooldown on it. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. We'll play around with this. This could be cool. This could be viable because there is a glyph that's buffing earthquakes too. So I mean, this might be good. Rage of Hargath. Damage reduction from bleeding enemies affix increased by 15%. So yeah, I mean, like I said, bleed could be a strong contender, and if you're running bleed, you'll probably run this. Because I mean, the cooldown reduction from Rage of Haragath combined with even more DR from it on it now too could be really good. Now, last but certainly not least, Gore's devastating grips. I am super excited about this change. The non-physical damage affix has been replaced with damage affix. Thank you. So we're just getting free damage on the whirlwind, free damage on our other stuff because, like I mentioned earlier, we don't really do non-physical damage. And since it'll just give you like plus damage, it'll not only buff the whirlwind damage, but it'll also buff the explosion, just damage. And if you run other stuff like Dust Devils, which is actually getting a buff with a Paragon Glyph, some other stuff, like it'll actually work with that too, right? So that's really cool. The attack speed affix has been replaced with critical strike chance against close enemies. Thank you. And this is why. Let's read this developer's note. Improving the attack speed of Whirlwind is a fantasy we want players to be able to chase. However, the interaction between the stat and skill is inconsistent. Yeah, as in, like, it doesn't really work. We are replacing the affix so it is more functional. This is huge. I cannot wait to play Whirlwind again in Season 2 and get my hands on some grips and just start spinning and winning, man. Like it's gonna be fantastic. This was a great change. I love to see this. Um, Now it's not quite back to the way they were when they were absolutely busted, but man, it's way better than what we were working with. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much a quick rundown of all this that we've got. Like I said, I plan to main Barb again in season 2. I think a lot of the vampiric powers are going to be really nice. I think it's going to stack with a lot of this stuff. The Paragon boards got buffed. We're moving in the right direction. Barbarian is actually looking really good for season 2. Now, I was debating maybe maining a Necro because Necro minions got a huge buff, like some insane buffs. But I mean that could be a topic for another video. Like I said, I just wanted to make this real quick about the Barb. I'm gonna main Barb again in season 2. We're spinning, we're winning. I mean, I love Whirlwind. I do. I love Whirlwind, and I see a lot of potential here. So that's about it, guys. Um, yeah, I mean, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. I'm going to try to put out some more videos moving forward, especially since we got some D4 content coming now. Also, I am live on Twitch just about every day. If you guys would like to stop in and check it out, I would greatly appreciate it. I will have a link to the Twitch stream in the description. And yeah, just come by, hang out, watch me play some Diablo 4. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you guys later. Peace.